I guess we'll just quickly move away from that. You've been here, what, a minute?
Yep.
And just instantly.
I've crossed the line.
Thrown it to the wind. Hey, look at those L's in the top left. That's Heroic's board. They got a bit of work to do today.
Yeah, they do. And I think the biggest thing in the storyline we have to focus on is that if they lose this, they will be watching with bated breath the secret game, because that is where their auto-relegation hopes lie. First, ban will come out and be Maverick. Not a surprise, a very predominant ban. But will it be coupled by the Thatcher? Will they double down on this? No, it'll be another hard breach of Hibana.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about the limitations on Club, because I know you guys discussed it on the desk. Club is risky to bring Empire to. It's a dangerous place. It's a place that Empire play well. But at this point, I'm thinking almost it's, you know, they're not going to have high expectations for Heroic. They're still going to have expectations. That's not me saying Empire like this is an easy game. But when you're up against the team that's towards the bottom of the board, this isn't the one that you look to be your hardest matchup, because statistically it isn't. Going to a map where Empire feel even more confident is potentially that let's lure them into a false sense of security, because recently, obviously Heroic have had a pretty major roster change in that they've brought in who was an IGL for another team, who's come in. We don't truly know the effect that Shukri has had on the roster, alongside obviously Thunder as the pickup. A heavy tactical map with some tweaks here could be a good play for New Heroic.
Ooh, look at this. A Tachanka and a Smoke being paired together. Will one get 6 picked instead? Because having both the Shumika launcher and the Smokes to play with, that is doubling down exponentially on the kind of plant denial they have. We know Empire loves Clubhouse. What else do they love, Emmy? They love planting on Clubhouse. And what better way to stop them from getting in and getting that job done than flaming balls of fire and toxic smoke babes? They'll start downstairs. That's a pretty damn good sight for Tachanka.
So, Void is going to try and lead in. They've obviously got the double up of the smoke there. We're looking at a Thatcher on game, so expect the hatches, expect those sort of walls to not be as hotly contested as otherwise often seen when you've sort of got the double down of the Thatcher and the Maverick off the board. It's not usually the Mav and the Hibana. It gives them a little bit more freedom on their approach. It gives them a little bit more leeway and swing as they make sure that, well, let's not play CC, which is going to be so quick to fall with a Thatcher on the board.
Well, Voy is going to be the one to make all that turret work. It's now a handheld turret instead of the one that you used to have to place down, and it has very good wall destruction. In fact, Voy is usually the one that will play the ACS on the Maestro as well, the one that sounds like a very destructive spud gun. He's able to do a lot of site manipulation. This time he'll do it with the turret, and we don't oftentimes get to see Thatcher in play, so I'll see how Dan works with it here. But surprising not to see him on the Buck. We know him to be the one that plays a lot of the Buck, and this time he's on the Thatcher.
He's had a really good split so far as well, Dan. He sort of came off the back of not performing too great in the last online section, had a good performance at LAN, wasn't anything entirely to write home about, but mainly because of Joystick, who was absolutely nuclear on the performance there. But then since then, he's really kept a good steady pace for Empire and been able to draw them back in, pulling off a couple of huge clutches and rounds that ultimately led to Empire being able to get a bit of a resurgence here. As I said, not too much of a stress and a stretch as they go for the approach on the hatches. Kitchen is going to be a little bit more dangerous because there's all that soft floor to make sure you don't suffer through the bottom side of, but Empire are well aware of this. They're going to play themselves around the game on the stock in the kitchen side first of all. A whole Thermite is going to be used. The exothermic pops off the first. They do still have the Selmas to potentially go for a push around pipes on the back of Church, but as the second pops open, that's all the exothermic's gone.
Oh, I love that from Dan there. He actually waited to hear if one of those Kaid charges would be thrown. When he didn't hear it go off, he got to save his EMP. Will that come into the latter parts of the round and be clutch for them? Maybe. EMP doesn't just work for that wall denial kind of capacity. You can also stop people's entire ADS and reticle showing up on their guns. So we'll see whether or not that works. And guess what? It disables those pesky C4s should that come in for the plant denial as well. Good little ping will spot out a player, but he'll be able to scuttle away. And it means that as we get past that sort of midway part of the round, both of these teams are yet to get a lick of damage on each other.
That's it. At this point, you're thinking, when are Heroic going to start trying to lean into the fight? They've played themselves passive, which you can do on this basement floor, but with all 5 of them spread out and one body, I believe, still in dirt, they're really letting them get the approach. That's Void with a long angle towards the bottom of the blue as they try and swing around on the side of Adam. Look at the drones working away in Armory, though. They're angling themselves up for the hatch, and it's going to be down to Blaz to pay that attention right now because, sure, they still have the swing capabilities, but if they think everything's coming from blue and suddenly it all explodes on the backside of the site, that's when danger starts. starts. The first grenade goes round the way, pulls the attention, but Joystick wins out the first fight. Looks back towards the first door, doesn't quite get the swing through as of yet, but you can see on the far side, Empire's dropped in. Shepard is going to see if he can stick it on the other. It's a swing round. Thunder is the next to go down, almost a double, but it's Blaz that locks it off alongside the Diffuser too. It's a 4 versus 3 with Thunder down on the ground.
Can't believe that the Diffuser got down in all of this chaos around Blue. There were 10 Shumika launches to play with, but Voy only has 6 left. Shepard, he'll take down Blaz, and as this flurry continues, they've only got about 20 seconds to be able to get onto that Diffuse. It is dwindling. All hope is dropping as Shepard is the one to capitalize. Joystick and Always will follow, and in a post-plan flurry like that, it is very difficult to be able to get that retake when all of those post-plan positions were pretty much perfect there from Empire.
That's it. They read that there was a gap. They read that Armory was open. They read that they could just move there and take control and sort of get the lock off that they needed to. There was nothing really to stop them. They sure had pulled a bit of attention away to the blue side, but it takes more than just a brave swing of a single player down Oil to see if they can get enough of a cover and attention away, especially when we still had not only the Shumika launchers, but also smoke canisters, which is around to the back of Armory from the swing of dirt. Any of that potential is just in pocket, and it allowed Empire to entirely bypass any of that.
It's funny as well because Joystick was able to counter the initial Shumika launches towards Blue by going, I know you have like 500 left, so instead of pushing into them, I'm going to go drop Oil Pit instead, take you by surprise, and well, take them by surprise he did. They're not going to repeat that though. They're going to try and go to CCTV this time, and that's going to be very important because that wall in of itself will need to be bandit tricked. You can effectively bandit trick the CCTV wall against the Thatcher. You can't, of course, against the Mavericks, so this is their opportunity now, since it's banned away, for Chaoxus to show us what kind of bandit tricking god he can be, or whether or not he's just going to place it down and move away. With that one there, it makes me think he's going to bandit trick though, and I want to see it.
It's so tricky though. I think that's the big problem, is when the Thatcher's on the board, this wall, regardless, if you have the toughest bans for your attack cited by people on the approach to the hard destruction, which is the Maverick Thatcher gone, the wall will still get opened. It's an inevitability. It's an eventuality at this comp, at this tier, because everybody knows the dance that has to take place, and everybody knows ways to force away the bandit tricks and the plays here. And with the Thatcher on the board, all it does is speed up the process. And Chaoxus isn't going to play entirely against both sides, as one will fall. There it is, catches some of the Selmas and means that they can't get into tuck for the close plant there, but it gets opened up, and now they have the angle across the rafters. They can start putting the pressure onto Garage if they need to.
Funnily enough, he was the one to be watching the drone hole as well. Usually you get a teammate to do that so that you can stand on the wall yourself and be able to react quickly. Selma charges are the only ones, when thrown in unison, that can open up the wall against a bandit tricker. So they played that really well there, and they would have wanted the right-hand side opened up, you're right. Otherwise, they might go for a window plan. Generally, sort of the MO here for Empire since the new year has begun here in 2021 has been to plant inside window so that they don't have to take that garage control. And well, maybe now that that side of the wall's opened up, they'll think about that.
Now, at what point do those two roaming heroic players start to try and find their way back? There hasn't been an entire bout of pressure towards the top of rafters, but you know it's only a moment away. There is still a bit of a hold and a bit of a stretch. Blaz is slowly making his way around, and Shukri, that's actually gone for the first rotation here, crept up towards the bottom of Adam. He's just peering around the window. He's eyeing up Lounge and the potential of a swing here, but he has to time it to perfection because he knows that there is all of the pressure of Empire. It's not even a partial hold or approach. They're trying to get their way into Garage. Blaz, he's going for the potential of the split. No, gets the swing around on the close fight, and there it is. Shukri gets one. Scyther gets Void back on the top, and that's the rafters gone. There's Scyther with a fantastic double all the way across. Looks for the tail of Shukri, but they're able to slip their way up red.
Yeah, really well done there. Unfortunate timing there from Blaz. He would have caught one over towards box at bottom garage stairs, but he'd been able to dip away at the last second. And I was wondering whether those C4s below would help, but guess what? There was a bulletproof in the hands of Mute instead, and this is the kind of default plant we were looking for. Chaoxus is the last line of defense here for the team because there's only one more smoke babe to be tossed, so he's going to have to toss that perfectly. And Shukri, he has a nice long angle, but with the SMG-11 in hand, that's going to be a hard shot to hit.
Now, as they try and get themselves behind the CCTV box, they're going to see if they can bait out a little bit of utility. Shepard goes in with the first, but they're going to hold it just for a second. Make sure they don't swung, but there it is. Scyther goes wide. The canister pops, and that forces them back, but they went for the tuck plant instead. Drove themselves deeper away from the canister onto default. Expected that push and pressure, and now it's a 2 versus 4, but Shukri is underneath. Not for very long, though. Dropped in Lounge and Thunder. He's in the middle of 3 different players. They're crouched in the room at Empire. They lock it off with a very solid hold.
This is what I meant before when I said Empire likes Clubhouse and they like to plant on Clubhouse. You must stop them from getting in, and getting in what is one of their biggest win conditions on this map. The times they get the plant down, converting it into a win are like over 70%. It is an enormous kind of win rate that Team Empire has on Clubhouse. Once they get the plant down, their post-plant positions are almost unrivaled on this map. So if you are Heroic now, you need to turn this around very quickly. Do I think the Clash pick is the one to do it with? Sure. If you're struggling with crowd control, if you're struggling with them getting in, see whether or not Thunder can do something there, but they've also brought the Echo. And I like that because they're struggling with the traditional plant denial they've been using.
We've seen Echo do bits on this site. We've seen a couple of teams replicate the Na'Vi hold here, but a team that hasn't had the biggest bout of success recently. But we've also just seen 2 rounds and only 2 kills from the side of Heroic, and that seems to be a bit of a problem here from a bit of a perspective up above. At least in that second round, they weren't quite able to double down on fights. They weren't quite able to lock themselves in on trades, which we've seen them do quite well on the games where they've gotten close. They've always been able to re-bite in and re-swing into holds, but it just seems that Empire has that net, that dangerous web of players that's able to pull them apart when they tried. 2 went for the Lounge, and they got dropped one at a time, one after each other, and since then it just seemed to be Empire found one, and then found another one, and then kept on pulling.
This is the first time we have seen Heroic ever come to this site since the remake of it. They've played this map 3 times since the remake that I have at least on my list, and they have not played that site once. Unfortunately for Scyther, he's going to have to wait out the first 5 seconds there. Gets pinged by that nice little alibi Prisma. And that will give them a bit of an indication that someone is spawning out that side. It doesn't say much, but it might indicate to the Heroic players they want to do a strip take just from the spawn alone.
Well, if it starts with a strip, where does the night end? And that's the question that they're going to be looking towards here, as they're sort of trying to piece together, because that early bite, that early confrontation, if they can stop Empire getting the setup that they want, maybe, they might be able to put themselves in a situation where Empire don't have that solid trade control. They don't have that consistent ability to just grab and claw Heroic players out of the fight. A big rotation over to the opposite side as they set themselves with a bit of cover and protection with the Claymore on red. They want to get the verticality here, and then potentially look like they're going for a stock side approach.
How fast Dan has been getting into the map and making sure that he makes his presence known has been overwhelming. And I think even though he is on quite an important flex support operator of Thatcher, he's been doing a very, very good job. In order to support him, it's these drones that have been zooming around both in the prep phase and now the action. This one's great. This should net a kill, but the runaway will probably save Blaz's life as he's desperately trying to hold on to the vertical control above. As we reach that halfway mark in the round, they need to get the vertical control soon, because if you're looking over towards Always, he needs to get that sledgehammer banging onto the roof as quickly as possible. Otherwise, that win condition of the plant might not happen.
And that was quite dangerous there for Blaz, because he thought the drone had slipped past, but he's able to strike, goes back into position, hops out and gets down. The Thatcher is gone. They were able to get Jacuzzi wall open, so he's done some of the work, but this was that early-ish take. Now with a minute on, they're going to see if they can start trying to crack from the opposite side. The single wall is popped open. Joystick comes around for the rotation to apply the pressure. That drone that we saw a long time ago was still actively pinging. Blaz has pulled himself back, and he's waiting for the arena gate to get popped open. He's actually slipping and dancing and past either side. A pre-fire gives a bit of a game away, but they've still got to get themselves through. Shukri, in the meantime, finds a second. There's the opener on the top logistic hatch, baits for the fight and tries to pull something in their attention, but with 40 seconds, they really have to start trying to get some pressure onto the site itself.
Empire have only attacked this site once before and they won it, so maybe there's a little bit of fake realization in their hearts now that they think they're good at this site when they actually aren't. Going up against a formidable opponent here, and the Clash will be the last line of defense. 20 seconds, and I don't see that plant going down.
No, they're looking towards the stock side. As I said, that was probably unlikely where they wanted to try and get the plant down. An Echo drone goes up, goes back down, but Clash is just round the corner. Blaz, he's still above, trying to find the fight and locks it off. This is an easy clean. No! The reverse vertical, but Shepard's just got to stick at 4 seconds. A Clash bullies him into Heroic's first round win.
There we go.
Oh.
Heroic showing that they...
Hey, Alibi.
How you doing? Just dropping on by.
Just dropping on by. Just seeing what's up.
There you go. I do love the fact that I haven't been casting for a long time, but I love the fact that when you're getting into the nitty-gritty of a round, you really are seeing everything. Like when I sit out and I analyze it and everything like that, I'm taking micro notes, but I get to see everything as I'm casting. I miss this a little bit, just a little bit. I don't miss losing my voice.
Well, that's Hap. No, he's in a well.
Oh, no. Get your story right.
He's in a well. Right. Who else has lost it?
I've lost my voice.
You lost your voice. Des lost his voice too.
But I don't think it impacted
It didn't impact
play
the
days.
broadcast.
Yeah.
But he did lose his voice.
He did. You got to take care of your voice.
Do you know what? Yeah, you do. Everyone at home, budding casters or shouting people, look after yourself.
Yeah.
Drink teas and honeys.
I hate tea, so hence I lost my voice.
Yeah, but also, if you're in a hotel, don't just use the AC.
There you go.
Because that is what 100% has happened to Hap.
Yeah, 100%.
Regardless of what he says, and we're just gonna use this moment. Hap, if you're watching from home,
yes,
it's your own dumb fault.
It really is.
Now get out of that well. Get better. Okay. There's that moment. yeah, it's good. I think you're entirely right in that there's a different perspective because you're in more with the pace, I think.
Yeah,
when you're
absolutely.
on this desk, you're catching up with things and sure things that pass, which is why the analyst desk is so fantastic at pulling up those. But at the same time, it's like, wow, we're along for a ride. And at this minute, Heroic, they've found a way to actually pull some of that back. It's a bit of a gambit because it's a bit of an offside, but how can they expand upon that?
Well, this is one of their most played sites. They love playing this one, and they have a multiplicity of strategies upon which they deploy when they go to it. They'll be able to get that CC wall open, and anyone who knows Empire on this map knows they do not like to leave the roamers alone. They want to clear them first. They're a very methodical team, and their step-by-step number one on their recipe is to make sure they get rid of those roamers above before they even think about opening up hatches. It'll be a split push from both Jacuzzi and CCTV, which will be the one to get it. I'm not sure whether or not that grenade bounced in the drone hole, and it missed. It did. Maybe they'll ask Dan to bring over one of those EMPs to deal with it, or always will cook a second. That'll bounce in and get its mark, and now both of those walls will be opened. But to do all of this, it'll take about 1:20 of their time just to open things up, just to be able to get some drones in, and that is without impact thus far.
That's it, and that's another grenade that's been used there, and you can see Heroic is wasting as much time as possible. They're not going to take the fights, but we throw ourselves back a couple of rounds, and they were entirely down on the basement at this point. They let Empire have a lot of ground. They let Empire not play, as you said, the game that they often hyper-focus on, which is this roam clear, which is trying to find all the bodies. Voy hasn't quite been able to dig his way into the game so far, but at the same time, they've only really been able to find one round, and it was the most recent. The first two, I think it's better forgotten about if you're a Heroic fan at this point, but either way, he's still going to see if he can meet the mantle, the mark, as he waits for the approach to start coming round. It's always eyeing up the potential of the kitchen.
They have wasted a lot of time on this round by roaming, and they've gotten a lot of drones for the trouble as well. There goes another. Voy will be able to capture, and he'll be able to get back to safe safely. Safely. You know what? It's a little bit of a tongue twister. That's what we're doing here today. On the desk, I don't have to speak this fast, but, you know, you're learning. Hatches were already pre-opened or not reinforced. The only one reinforced was this kitchen one, and no one is there to impact trigger. This could have been the mark for them to keep that one closed.
Shukri's still waiting aggressively where the plant spot happened before. He's hoping he can catch someone by a bit of surprise here because, as you said, a lot of drones happen wasted. And that's the important thing right now because Empire sometimes found themselves as a team that over-trusted their drone play. Here, as always, is hammering around. He's so close to discovering the man underneath with a shotgun. Maybe just saw a sliver, but Shukri's still trying to find his way up and see if he can punish them. It gets more dangerous. The more of these holes are open because you're never quite sure. As the bodies stack themselves up, Pipes opens, but gets dropped. The diffuser is cold for the first time. A 5 versus 3 as Voy's able to strike on the split side as well. There it is. A bit of revenge from the top down, and the diffuser recollected. 10 seconds, and that door is locked. Moto is the attempt on the swing now without the wall being popped open. Scyther takes the first fight. He's looking for the second, but he has to stick this diffuser down and hope that Always can keep the cover. Hold F. And now as they find themselves trying to circle their way back round, it's a 2 versus 2, but somehow against all odds, the plant is down on the backside of Church. Blaz has stepped himself up, waited for Thunder to rotate. They said, well, let's play the plant game and go for the 45 seconds afterwards. Both of them are stuck round here on the far side. The wall is locked. There is the smoke. Almost caught out. They push. They know they have to. And Empire take a round.
That was really poorly played there from Heroic, down to the fact that when someone is planting, you're in a pseudo 1v2. If you're in a 2v2 situation, one of the attackers is planting, boom, you have the opportunity to move in and capitalize on the fact that only one person has a gun up to be able to face you. Instead, they waited for Thunder to rotate. Thunder had 3 smokes in hand and only deployed it after he had been shot. A very big misdirection there from the side of Heroic, knowing full well that they had time in their hands. And Empire, well, they got gifted that round, I think, and they'll move forward with yet another one of those attacking rounds post-plan.
I guess it's one of those things where in the situation they were saying, well, let's recoup, let's bring ourselves back. It wasn't like anyone was down as well. It's not like they misunderstood the situation. They knew where the plant was going down too, because that's where they set themselves up. And whether it was Shukri making the call of wait for me, let me come round, because you expect Blaz to take the fight. He was in blue, he was in a position to lean into the aggression. If Blaz didn't feel confident in 1 versus 1, that's a possibility, but even then you're just sort of looking at, I guess, so many options, and unfortunately the wrong one was chosen there. For how well the round started off, you got to give credit to Heroic there. They bit themselves in based on the wasting time they did, but at the same time, Empire, sure, they took it back, but I think that they were handed it more than anything.
Well, now we'll go to Gym and Bedroom, and this is one of the highest win rate sites. Or rather, no, we're going to CC, aren't we? God, they've extended themselves. They've given me the bait and switch here. I wish they had have gone to Gym and Bedroom, because that's actually one of their highest win rate sites. Instead, they'll go to CCTV, which has one of the lowest for them that they have played. Wall will surely get opened up very quickly, and as those Selmas will fall off the wall, Chaoxis might catch it. Yes, he does. Well done. That is a well-performed Bandit trick. You must place the Bandit as you see the purple flash on the wall. And back in my competitive days, before we had these Selmas, that was my kind of forte there, and I loved it. And to see a good Bandit tricker is great. They'll get one off, and the only sort of point for me now is that they will only have 1 exothermic to play with, and only one side of the breach opened up, but they'll get Void for that trouble.
That's it. They're able to take the fight. Blaz is still underneath, and obviously last time we were here, he almost struck gold with a swing round from Lounge. This time, Lounge, I believe, was pre-opened. I don't think that was from the aggression that came through before. It's going to give Empire a little bit more food for thought, slow them down. Hey, Heroic, that almost worked for you in the previous round. It's a good idea to double down and bring a little bit more of that success. Dan, now the limited holes and opening that they had before, sure, they've got the one in for the tuck plant that they went on previously, but at the same time, you don't quite have the angles to swing around and put the pressure onto the top of rafters, which was your step 2. So pay your attention towards red, as they are. It's always now potentially going to swing round. Blaz is underneath, but Shukri locked into construction could be the next possibility. No.
Unfortunately, Dan had sacrificed his last EMP to that ADS, and thank goodness Scyther is in the rafters cleaning on up, because they wanted to get that bulletproof off, and now he'll be able to shoot those ADSs. Can't get that quite tuck angle for the diagonal to make sure that bulletproof goes down. A missed opportunity because the AK has been since nerfed recently, so its recoil is exponentially raised, and that's why we're seeing some of these players struggle. But as the time dwindles, so does Blaz's health, and it looks like they're going to be able to capitalize yet again on another freebie.
He went for it there, but with 40 seconds left, now it gives Empire so much to build with. As they are able to at least pull one back, it's suddenly instantly traded off. Top of red falls. They've got themselves stacked up on the breach. Shepard is just going to plant in the meantime. There's nothing in Shukri's pockets to go for a swing, so has to take it himself. And Empire find their 4th, now with a bit of a break in the middle, but one more opportunity here for Heroic to lock in a defense.
They desperately need this, because if you are willing to take Team Empire to Clubhouse, knowing full well you haven't won a single Clubhouse, yes, you took a weakened G2 into overtime and were able to secure 1 point, but that doesn't really mean much. Moving forward into this map, moving into the second half after we complete, of course, the next round, I will see whether or not they have the capacity to bring it back. Otherwise, it is going to be quite a big... I don't want to speak too heavily about them walking into a possible relegation position here.
It's never anything you want to talk about.
No, because it's sad.
Yeah, you want to try and put off those sort of conversations for as long as possible, because I think one of the things about the E-League is it is hyper-competitive.
Yeah.
There's been teams as well that have been on the top and then the next split on the bottom. There is teams that have entirely had turnarounds, and there's teams that have just had great runs.
Yep.
There's also some of the best teams that we know in the league right now, most notably BDS, who when they got up to Tier 1, I believe if it wasn't the season where relegation didn't happen, they would have been relegated.
That's right. We did note that. Yeah.
So, and you look at them now, and you look at the strength they're in now, and you're thinking, Heroic is a team of great potential, great skill, and they have all these moments. Here, we're not quite seeing it. It's nerves being this close to the precipice and falling off, but it's also Empire on club. And Empire are fighting for the top, and Empire are off the back of 2 losses. They need this hungrier than they otherwise might have been before.
Well, if you want to make the major, you need that top 4. If you want to make 6 Invitational, you need all of those points that the major can gift you. And if you want to get out of relegations, you don't take Team Empire to Clubhouse. That's exactly how it's looking right now for Heroic. They took a risk, and it looks like they've bitten off more than they can chew. Speaking of, we will finally get to see whether or not Heroic can win yet another defensive round. And that 6 pick onto the Zofia. Does he have the LMG in hand, or is he gone to the AK?
I think it's the AK.
Oh, he does have the AK. There you go. A lot of
Joystick
people
can handle it.
Sure, naturally.
He's got it.
Naturally.
Yeah, he's all right with it. And one thing that I think I'm going to say about handling is, look how much quicker this is.
Right?
They just instantly locked themselves forward. They knew what slowed them down before. They knew that they suffered against the clash at the end, and they knew that they lost those early engagements. Here, the first bout of pressure came all the way towards construction. They didn't just get in CC, then move over to Jacuzzi, then try and make their way back. They went, no, we're taking construction first. We're going to push them entirely out of there. Blaz isn't going to get the swing out. We're going to make sure that that room, that area is ours, and then we go for what we want to do underneath.
I'm not sure what this aversion is to gym and bedroom as a site. One of Heroic's most won sites statistically, and them avoiding it to go to bar is quite an oddity to me, but nevertheless, it looks like it's something they want to commit to. They know what they did wrong last time, and well, Blaz, he didn't learn any lessons. In fact, this time he's learned how to take a headshot squarely from Dan, who has started off this half slowly, but is picking up momentum.
A bit of Russian revenge there from the pockets of Dan, who made sure he didn't suffer
Oh,
before.
come on.
Is getting a bit of a read as Voy eyes up the potential of potentially swinging out on the opposite side. No, stops his run as his route, realizes that they need to have more bodies in line for the potential fight in the plant around stage. Here, though, it starts a bit of a clear across the top, dropping the drones, getting themselves these angles. Always has been steady above so far and was able to punish the vertical previously. 6-1. I think it's fair to say he's been able to punish a lot of Heroic.
Well, last time Empire couldn't even get this far when they did want to go for that plan. That was the only round the Heroic had won on this side, and they're going to bring the clash back for the trouble. This seems to be their setup, but unfortunately they've given Empire a lot of room to roam. Speaking of, Shukri cooking up over in kitchen is able to snag Dan back. You speaking about revenge? Well, the French have a bout of revenge for themselves should they need, and Shepard waiting in lieu over towards that kind of pre-planned position. They know where the Echo drone is and 10 seconds left.
Shukri just ran out of the kitchen window to see if he could get Shepard. Mistimed it, unfortunately, but now, as they're hungrily searching, it's Shukri. Strikes one, strikes two, swung round, puts the diffuser Cole and Scyther on the other side of the room, playing pool, but unfortunately that's not the game. It's another round for Heroic, a second on the half, and something for safety.
Well, there you go. They've never played that site before today's game, and the 2 times they've played it have given them a 100% win rate. There you go. It was gym bedroom before. They were lifting weights upstairs, and they said, you know what, bring it down. Let's have a drink.
Let's relax. Let's slow it down.
Yep.
And, well, they were able to at least get something. But that's the worry, I think, right now, is it's just something.
Yeah.
It's 2 rounds. They still have their technical timeout as well. They still have the chance to have a conversation. They have a 2-round buffer, but you're heading into an Empire defense on club, which is sturdy.
Let's see how sturdy.
It's a very light way of putting it to say that it's sturdy. It's dangerous. It's well put together. I think they have some things working for them, but Dan often lights up more now. He's on the defense. Picking up the role of Mozzie instead of playing the Thatcher will allow him to play more into the role that he's been successful on recently. They have a little bit more of a freedom. Shukri there. Almost caught them just before as well. That would have been sick.
That would have been sick. Nevertheless, I'm going to give a little bit of silver lining here for all the Heroic fans out there. All is not lost because Team Empire on Clubhouse recently has statistically been attacking-sided.
Okay.
So there is hope.
Yeah.
Please
It's
sound
good to have hope.
convincing, Emmy.
No, I think it's good to have hope. It's good to pay towards those minds because Heroic can bring stuff, but you're looking at the board. It's Shukri, as I said, he was the recent addition. He was, an IGL for another team. He's come into this team to sort of step in. They're still trying to find their feet. But you're looking at, unfortunately, Thunder is having one of the off games. He's been a bit hit and miss. It's been a weather forecast, and he's either there or he isn't.
Yep.
And at the minute, he isn't, unfortunately. And now he's on the sort of Thatch role. Now he's playing a more passive role to potentially allow Shukri to put a bit more pressure on Blaz and Chaoxis as well, 2 gunners that you want to see gunning, and we won't even get that as Shepard locks it off with a shotgun. They just threw themselves in. Thunder swings around on the bottom of blue, looks for the fight over the top of the AKs. It's Void with one more. Dan screams his way into Church to offer a bit of a split push. Thunder, he's isolated, finds the first fight over the third box, but as he tries to stick it on the far side, he needs his team to offer some support. Void is trying to find his way back round. They get the diffuser cold and pop a smoke over the top of it. 2 minutes though. There's enough time to waste out the rest of those, but there's also more than enough time for Empire to reconvene, rebuild, and reset themselves up for this 3 versus 2.
How on earth any observer in the world could have caught the chaos that just erupted on your screen is beyond me, but alas, it has happened, and I couldn't even tell you if it was Medics or Easy right now, because both of them have the capacity to be able to capture what I want to call that brilliance, because Team Empire, knowing full well that they were getting split push from Chaos left, right, and center, means they were able to capitalize on sloppiness here from Heroic. The call from Shukri meant that he himself pushed. It did not mean his teammates were ready to go. And when you bring in a very decisive IGL like Shukri, what are you going to get? You're going to get someone who maybe takes decisions a little bit too quickly.
Well, they have him either side and isolated. Blaz has slipped in. Shepard is injured. He's just going to hold back and wait for Always to get in a position, a pre-fire shot, but with the creep round behind, he's isolated in the middle of 2 gunners. A minute on the clock, but when you are watched in the firing line of 2 different people, you sort of have to try and take a fight. Unfortunately, they decide to take it first. Empire, they lock it off, a 2 versus 1 in the end. One more trade had gone the other way and put that body balance in a slightly different position. It could have been a very different story. The importance also, stopping Thunder getting the plant off. It wasn't massively close, but it was still within that 7-second window. It was about the 3 or the 4-second mark.
Oh, that could be a lifetime in siege time, unfortunately. And for the side of Heroic, what Shukri may have called there, should it have been him to make that call to rush, given the setup there of Empire, it wasn't wrong. It's just unfortunate that his teammates were not in a position to be able to capitalize on the call to make that rush happen. He saw an opening. Unfortunately, the opening wasn't as wide as he had initially anticipated, and he got punished for it. And now they are going to have to bring this back, because if Empire win this round, it's match point. They're staring down the barrel of having to slap together 4 rounds just to get a measly point.
Uh-oh, Heroic. Remember when we talked about the Heroic fans having a bit of hope? This is the danger, is, to be fair, they took a risk.
They did.
I'm always one to say, regardless of what team it is, every team has the possibility to pull off a rush.
Yes.
Because you're not just working on your own sort of pace and gun skill, you're working on taking your opponents by surprise, which every team can be taken by surprise. There's no team that universally knows everything that's going on. Okay, maybe there is, but they're in quals and they're using cheats. Not at this tier, not at this level. And it's one of those things where they flipped a coin, and unfortunately it fell against them. They still have stuff that they can build behind, but if anything, that motivates Empire to be quicker, sharper, more attuned. It's a vaccine effect. They've had a little taste of danger, and now their body knows how to prepare against it.
We'll see whether or not this round can further, I guess, prove to us that Team Empire's entire point of playing on Clubhouse is to make it their playground. Oh, that's called a double up, ladies and gentlemen.
That's
clever. It gives them the false sense of security that exothermic at the top of the breach, which would have gone off given the new mute changes, but instead double it up by bringing that bandit trick as well. And if you're looking over to the side of the attackers, Chaoxis is the only redundancy there for Void should he lose both of those exothermics. So that is a very big pick, because if you can't open garage as well, things might get tricky.
It's clever, but it's frustrating if you're on the other side. They've been able to look into rafters, I believe, and get some of the control. There's the pop of those breaching charges, both to go off at the same time, but the bandit has actually long since slipped away. Dan, on the meantime, he's just dancing right by Blaz, who's able to strike there early and get a bit of a big take. It pulls them off the board, takes them out of those engagements. Shepard has gone underneath, I believe, with his C4, ready to see if he can swing up and cause some damage, but with the mounting pressure that's coming via stock, he's actually pulled himself all the way over. now as he's making sure that they still have some of the lock on the other side. And actually, Empire's pulling away. Instead of him offering some support underneath, they've said, well, wait a second, let's just go back to the site.
Oh, Joystick missed a bit of a freebie there. The Storm is an absolute laser of a weapon, so if anyone runs past, the fire rate and the fact that it has no recoil should gift him a kill. He's looking, but that was not the sort of target he was looking for. And well, you could have fooled me by thinking that the site was CCTV and cache just before, given their kind of wholehearted setup towards that side of the map. But they wasted over half the round stalling out almost every bit of utility, and they were able to bandit trick one of the exothermics. Shepard still has both of his bandits and places them on Jacuzzi with less than a minute left. Yeah, Heroic are going to struggle to get in and get the job done. This might fall to just a bit of a chaotic gunfight at the end.
That's it. There was so much time that was played away and wasted just on the other side. They maybe didn't expect so much of a hefty expansion towards the split on CC instead, and it really puts the mantle of pressure now. As Chaoxis tries to open his way up onto the gym bedroom, there is one angle being held inside. Shepard just deep, making sure that Jacuzzi wall doesn't fall. Joystick gets one more with the gun, and it's quickly followed up by some great takes either side. And more of an angle goes through as Scyther tries to retake the mantle, but with only 14 seconds, it's an always C4 and a Chaoxis take to leave it just to Scyther. Waiting for the hop and puts the fire. They've gone into the bedroom on the opposite side, and they're going to see if they can get the plant down. In the meantime, the spray, he sprints, he drops the gun on the round.
I think Kickstar would put it nicely. Why are you running? Why are you running?
Get it on a t-shirt. Kicks. Michael, if you're listening,
Yep.
sell it.
Yep. Why are you running? You didn't need to run there.
Didn't need.
Nope. 7-second diffuse timer there.
I think that's... You always, in those sort of situations, wonder what was the call?
Yes.
What was the intel that they were running on? Did they say, now, go, you have to go? And that's something which, to be fair, can be said in those situations.
Sure.
Which means you just act. You're used to just sprinting, and it's one of those tricky situations, and that's the only thing I can expect for a player as seasoned as that to sprint in a situation as of that.
Sure. Sure. Well, looking to deny the plant. Impatience may be there, or a wrong call, whatever it might be. It has put Heroic firmly back into the fight. Every time you're staring down the barrel of match point is another one where you make that extra mistake. You didn't mean to. You know you wouldn't have done that should the pressure have not been on your shoulders. And now Heroic has a little bit of breathing room, even to the point where we saw Voy having a little bit of a laugh with a couple of the other players, knowing that they were able to pull together a round they possibly should not have won, as we said before. Jacuzzi wall was closed. It took them a heck of a lot of time to be able to just get cash control. So they are lucky that Empire threw themselves willingly into their hands. And speaking of, they'll go to CCTV, which is actually one of their least played sites. They have a 50% win rate on it. So going to this site, knowing full well that it's not one of their favorite sites, means that something has either changed recently or they just forgot their luck.
I think it's one of those conversations with Empire is, you know, they often cited as being pioneers of some takes rather than some defenses. They were a good attacking team in terms of the tactics they developed, but often with their defenses, they would pick up on plays that others did. Don't get me wrong, they would play them exceptionally well, but it's not the way we've talked about Navi's holds. It's not the way you talk about SSG's holds. It's a different approach to the game, which has worked for them across the board. Here as Thunder sprays through and punishes always. It was just on the back line. The Maestro's gone. I guess in some ways it could have been worse, but at the same time, always is the top player on the server right now, and to lose yourself in such a sort of bluster and a blunder, there's those mistakes you talked about.
Was that a mistake of placing that Evil Eye late? Why was he on the wall and not Shepard? Why was he the one running away as a 3-armor in the latter parts of an exothermic exploding? That will blow my mind for the rest of the day, and I'm going to have to go back on the replay and watch this. You guys can go back in the future and Rainbow Six Esports match VODs on YouTube to watch those games. Speaking of, Void needs to watch his back. There's a strip club run out as he's desperately trying to open up the bottom of Garage to do what I would consider to be a default take onto this site.
Yeah, Dan was almost able to take more than just money from the strip club there, but he's actually put himself back around, gone underneath towards Lounge to see if he can offer some very needed support as Garage itself gets popped open. Joystick is going to be the next person to suffer a mantle of pressure. He's going to stick himself in for now, but there's not many places he can go as they're droning out. They're steady, 3 different directions, and that's the worry because he needs somebody to offer him something. This role is one where you try and survive for as long as possible, bait out utility, and Heroic are going to see if they can make that a very quick role for him.
Oh no, those traces, they've given away his position. How he's still alive is beyond me. Grenades will sail up, and as they do, Blaz from behind in the angle for the cross will get it. Joystick falls, and as all of this crossfire is impending across the site, Thunder's able to take away Dan as well. Really great crossfires, and I said before, Empire threw themselves towards the players of Heroic. They're doing it again this round.
That's it. They're just trying to make things stick. And unfortunately, that's not quite working here because Heroic, they've gained some energy. They've gained a very good mantle of control here. Their holds, their attention to the detail of where Empire are, whether it's coming from just their positioning or whether it's coming from intel, either way, they knew entirely about Dan trying to find his way onto the double door, and then they knew where to pick up the next trade in the next engagement. Here, though, 15 seconds, the first firefight comes, a drop grenade, sprays for the second void. He locks it off there. It was a bit of a desperate attempt with the smoke canister, but when you have people every which way but up, the only way is down and out.
Well, now would be a good time for both of these teams to take a little bit of a breath of fresh air, and Team Empire will be the first one to take their tactical timeout. Generally, it's Heroic in their matches being the one to take that timeout, but Team Empire, they are throwing bodies at Heroic, trying to win via gunfights, and we said this on the analyst desk before. We said Team Empire is playing a lot slower when they play online. When they play on land, they're really fluid, they go very fast, they win a lot of their gunfights, and their entries are usually almost always positive. But when they play online, they like to blame the ping, they're not sure whether or not they're going to win their gunfights. It is a legitimate excuse.
No, it's fair. It's a conversation that I think always happens with online play is... You know, if you're out there, which is probably most people who have never had the joy of playing Siege on a LAN environment. Correct. It's very different.
Ooh, it's like butter.
It's strangely different. And you'll hear people say it. It's like when you say, oh, 144 hearts, that can't be that different. And then you play it and you're like, oh, dang.
Oh, my God.
This is how this feels. And that's why players, especially those more used to it, will be like, we perform better because it feels like a different game at this point. It feels like a different engine. You know, we work with the limitations that are put forward. We still have a hyper-competitive league, and Empire obviously still put the distance in. But I'm curious. My curiosity has piqued, Jess, is the fact that Heroic didn't have their timeout. Do you think they expected to suffer on their defense and bring it back on attack the whole time?
It's hard to say because they themselves got to pick which side they started on. So if they have started on what they would consider to be their weaker side, or a side that they thought they would struggle because of Empire's attacking win rate, of course there are support staff behind Heroic that surely have done the number crunching to be aware of that. I'm just not sure. You would have to have phenomenal mentality on the team to start on a side where you know you're probably going to get smashed and be able to turn it around under pressure. We've seen teams try and do that and fail considerably. So I would like to think maybe not, but whatever the answer might be, they are only within one round of tying this up. And well, Empire now, if they want to make these rounds stick, they need to stop throwing bodies readily at the very capable hands of Heroic, who are hitting their shots.
Empire, you've had your conversations, your team talk, and you're still but one round away from getting to OT and at least securing a point. It's not what people expected after the solid opener that you had, but Heroic have desperately, bitterly, and fantastically at this point been able to fight their way back into the fray in the game itself. There's that drone game I talked about before. With their sort of handle on the intel here, it's even with the mute, even with the Mozzie, even with all the distractions that they can sort of offer towards drones, it still seems like Heroic are doing a pretty valiant effort at pulling information, but last time we were here, they just threw themselves in. This is the first time we're seeing their slow, steady take.
Something also to take note of is that Dan is having quite a slow game, and he is the highest rated player this stage on Team Empire by far. In fact, he has a plus 18. Before this game began, plus 18 KD and a plus 5 entry kill differential. It is incredible the stats he's been putting up. So maybe that's been part of why we're not seeing the dominant Team Empire that we're used to seeing here on Clubhouse. And why Heroic's getting a little bit of a leg up here and a second wind as they're able to come into the second half and prove that they themselves can also be a good attacking team on Clubhouse.
Heroic wasted a huge amount of time when Empire were doing this approach before, and I guess that's the worry that they might suffer the same thing, as they're being pretty thorough. They're making sure that all of the angles are held. They're making sure that everything's droned ahead as well. They don't want to suffer to a loose Empire player, but Empire, they're sort of twiddling their thumbs, generally further down and far away. It's sort of this waiting for the mantle of pressure to push, and sure, this at one point worked for Heroic when they were able to just put a bit of a punishment back in on the swing round, but then Empire pulled off the hold the second time anyway. You're sort of like poking them with a stick saying, okay, go on, do something, Heroic.
This was the exact counter I needed from Empire. Stop throwing bodies at the problem, wait for them to come to you, and see whether or not your sixth man on your team, which I call time, is able to win the round on your behalf. That's what can happen with very, very slow teams, and well, we've seen Heroic be a slow team before, and considering it took them a minute 30 plus just to get top 4 control, I'm thinking that that is going to be the winner this round. The MVP of this round might very well be time.
Time, it waits for no man or non-binary entity as it tries to find its way through, but with 30 seconds and Shukri suffering a huge amount from an explosion through the floor, you assume over the kitchen fight. Hatch itself is still done. Hey, look at that. Pipe slugged off at the very end. Maybe it was Shepard getting very bold with the swing round, realizing how late things are. Joystick swings open. Gets the first there on the fight on the opposite side. 10 seconds left, and we find ourselves scratching our head more than that guy who reviews the guns of this game as they drop their way in. It's Chaos around on the backside, but Chaoxis is the only one to find anything out of it now as the swing comes through with a shotgun. It's another spray and an Empire OT confirmer, but maybe the map itself. 6th round.
Not a single member on the side of Empire looking concerned there. All going according to plan.
They're vibing.
They're vibing.
They're chilling.
Absolutely. Although I would say that there is a little bit of concern in the eyes of Dan there, who knows very well that whilst he likes to take the spotlight, today it will be in the hands of Always. Always is the one that gets to walk away with the spotlight. We will say, though, in the previous stages, Always was the dark horse of the European League.
Yeah.
He was in like the top 5 rated players,
Yep.
unbeknownst to us for quite a long time.
He's consistent and he's very steady, and I think his performances, they were always good, but Empire generally around that period weren't great.
Right.
And that's why they sort of, you know, people were like, okay, well, he's not really the player that is stepping up and carrying the whole team in that regard. He was just always consistently good. But now that we're seeing a little bit more of the resurgence of older Empire, now we're seeing Joystick having these good games, Shepard as well, and Scyther have been able to step up. Dan, not this game, but has been having good games. Always been able to get better. And I think that's the difference here is he was good when things were bad, and now he's great when things are good. He's staying above the curve, and that's going to draw our focus more to him.
Well, if you're wondering whether or not Empire are likely to lock this out here, this is the second most... How do I explain this stat in simple terms? This is the site where they waste the most time, or almost the most time. It's the second site.
The second mostest timest wastedest.
Yes, that. I was trying to think how to get it out there for everyone to understand. You know what? Emmy puts it much more eloquently than I do.
I've just thrown a couple words at you.
This should be a long round if everything goes to plan as per recent rounds here. On this particular site, mind you, we're looking up against both a Maverick and a Habana band, so this changes the dynamics considerably. And Scyther doubles up by putting Surya Gates on both areas, knowing full well that that will be the plan spot.
One of the changes we're seeing here is a bit of an approach from, I think, Garage. I don't know if they then explored it with a body, but Blaz is definitely exploring it with a drone here. Yep, there it is. Chaoxis charging up. Remember, they went for the breach last time round, and there was people playing against the wall. Well, this time they realized we need to put a crossfire up first. They're going to open up the angle, make sure it isn't a rotation, so they can't get pushed back through, and just force them into an uncomfortable position. They're not actively looking for the firefights right now. What they are is looking at trying to push them further away, make them not able to waste as much time, because they know Empire's not playing to die here. They're trying to pull themselves back. If you can force that without suffering too much utility cost, that's your goal.
Well, they were able to waste a heck of a lot of time last round. They're looking to repeat that yet again, but they look like they want to take bodies with them before they go out. Whoa! Okay, not sure you should have lost that one, but 2 headshots in a row. Blaz and Chaoxis, they're able to open this round wide open. And when I said that Empire shouldn't throw bodies, well, they didn't really throw bodies then. That was just some good shots there from Heroic and nice little bit of patience.
It was a much better approach this time round, and last time we were here, there was a minute less on the clock before they started their approach on the window, which gives them so much more time to try and just put a little bit of danger into the site itself. The steady approach might be marred by Joystick, who's holding of your favorite operators there and waiting for the approach on the swing round. Doesn't quite get it, but gets caught by Voy on the window. Punishes one more player. Dan, you got to get your way back round onto site, mate, because they've taken control of the second half of the top floor.
Dan is going to have to put up a big show here. He knows that with that cam outside, they're able to spot out these players, and that upside down rappel, that'll punish anyone who comes into the line of sight. Is that hatch open for him to play below? Does he have the angle he's looking for? Yes is the answer. That's a freebie should he get it, and there it is. That's the kind of opening they needed to cut away this almost flawless round here from Heroic. But with 30 seconds left, there is a lot of time here for Heroic to play with. We've got one, no, make that 2 drones as well, but they don't have the time to deploy them.
Blaz also still has 2 grenades here, and they've had a bit of a dangerous game with swinging on utility, but as Thunder goes for the plant itself, there's the ping, and there's a movement. There's an impact underneath. They're going for a take. They can't quite get the angle. He's on the other side, and it's down on the opposite side. Dan gets Shukri, tries to swing round, caught by Chaoxus on the window. They couldn't get the body on the plant. The fight goes through. The Alder goes burr, but unfortunately, the bed goes no. A very well-made mattress keeps that player alive at this moment in time. Another impact puts some damage into the other side of Thunder, but with 30 seconds and a camera just seeing if they can lower him a little bit more, it's going to do as much as possible. I think he was thinking that and hoping, potentially a little bit more injured, but as the seconds keep ticking, there's a lock all the way across. They know exactly where the Maestro is, and Heroic get another round 1 away from OT.
That round was won based off the fact that Thunder knew I suppose he either heard or saw the traces coming up from underneath. He needed to replace himself behind what the engine is where that mattress lays on the site there of bedroom. And knowing full well that the part of the mattress is wall bangable, but there is an engine, of course, that creates that metal blockage so that you can't shoot through it from a certain angle. And so for him to move, what I would say is probably a centimetre forward, save that entire round. It's incredible that this game can be, spoken about in such millimeters and such centimeters like that. And, well, that's exactly what Thunder was able to do. And, whoo, we are almost going to OT.
Well, like a lot of unfortunate people out there, the centimeters on that mattress were definitely not bangable. Now, we find ourselves closer and closer to OT. Empire, unfortunately, will require a rehost, and we will find ourselves coming back around into, I guess, have a conversation. Now, they've already obviously used their sort of timeout. You assume that they'll be having one more of these talks of how can we lock this off? What can we do differently? And again, it sort of plays back, I think, to your conversation or your point of, sure, they didn't throw themselves into the fight there.
Yep.
But they definitely suffered at what has been an exceptional control of information, intel, and just flat coverage on how to get these firefights locked from Heroic.
I'm wondering whether or not Team Empire is misinterpreting the situation that they're going up against, because it was very clear when they turtled downstairs on Church and Arsenal that they understood the time game. Then they went to any other site, and it was just a thought that never, sort of came to them. And I keep thinking to myself, that is a dangerous game to play. If you know that there is a win condition of playing as much time as possible, forcing the gunfights in the dying parts of the round, and then winning the round based off that, why not continue that on every other site that you're going to? The rehost will occur, and Dan and Shepard will take a nice quick toilet break as a result of getting that little bit of reprieve. And again, I know you're zooming in on the LED that these boys...
It's not the LED, actually. We don't always get to see the plushies that Shepard otherwise has behind the flamingo. I think that's a fox.
Oh, no, it's gone. We won't get it. Wait.
He'll be the swap-in on Thunder.
He will.
Production.
Please, we must see his background.
We never get to see... We only ever see Pikachu on the far side.
That is true.
It's a great support plushie. But
no,
I guess not. They don't want us to look at
animals.
There was a cat outside the studio earlier, and Milos just zoomed through and went, "There's a cat, bye."
He did.
And he was just gone.
And it was match point as well. And he is my host, so I really needed him on the desk at some point. He did come back, surprisingly.
But we just told him that there was a cat in the studio.
Oh, is that how you got him back in?
Yeah, that's how we lured him back in, and then we locked the door so we couldn't get back out.
Oh.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to make these calls. Oh, Shepard's back. I mean, yeah, Shepard's back, but we also want to see what the other animals. There's a flamingo. Is that like a bear or a beaver? I don't know.
Whatever it is, it's cute.
Yeah, a good collection there, Shepard. Congrats.
Well, if you guys are just tuning in to this absolute, what would Ace say, slobber knocker of a match, the stakes are very high here for both of these teams, probably more high for the boys that you're seeing on your screen right now for Heroic. They themselves, should they lose this match, I'm unsure what would happen in overtime points. I would have to reach out to my numbers man Fresh after this game. But if they lose this match, either in regulation or overtime, and Secret win theirs in regulation, then they are fully relegated. This means auto-relegation, which in terms here of Siege and EUL means they do not have an opportunity to come back next year into Tier 1 EUL Siege whatsoever. It means a Challenger League team will take their place no matter what.
One more round, boys. One more round, and then you at least get to breathe a little bit easier today. Empire, on the other side, they've found themselves in a little bit of unfortunate mid-table obscurity in this split, at least. They're not quite angling towards the top four, as they've been able to do so continually previously, and so locked in with the solidity of a Russian force that for EU, for all the viewers and the hopes and the dreams, they were our dangerous lead-in. They were the one that we put it alongside BDS and said, hey, remember EU? We're a region that's come to reclaim the crown from the other pesky regions that have otherwise taken a lot of titles from us recently. And here, you would be mistaken to believe that.
Well, we've set the stage for the stakes for Heroic, but what does this mean for Empire should they win this match? Well, it means they skyrocket all the way up into 3rd place on the rankings. Where do they currently sit? 6th. They would move up 3 entire spots by getting those 3 points, and they would bunny hop over the likes of Kavana, Virtus Pro, Team Vitality to put themselves squarely in the spot for making the major. That is what they are looking for, because should they make the major, then they will almost certainly make 6 Invitational with points accrued. BDS also vying for those SI points today even. So they themselves much further. They've had a big head start with this year of points being accrued. But we'll see whether or not we even make it to overtime, which would muddy the waters of who bunny hops who on the rankings even further.
CCTV cash is where they're going to see if they can lock it off. Empire, they're finding themselves with what is a sort of familiar hold here. They tried to dabble with a bit of a roam play underneath. They tried to put some punishment in, and it did not quite come together. I'm curious to see if they go for something a little bit more flat on the vertical in terms of a hold, see if they extend their way to logistics and construction rather than lounge underneath, or if they just go, listen, we can do this. If 1 or 2 of these fights go our way, if 1 or 2 of the times we're a bit more aware of where Heroic has the control, maybe this can turn into a situation where we have that slightly better body advantage, because it was about 15 seconds left in the round the last time we were here before and Heroic pulled off the plant. It was a 4 or a 3 versus 1, but still just takes 1 player to lock in a different result.
Well, looks like Dan is doing a bit of drone hunting, knowing full well that Heroic has had very, very good pre-placed drones in the prep phase. Dan has unfortunately not been able to find Thunders, and that's the area he wants to play, that he doesn't want anyone to come in underneath, hence those horizontal holes towards stock. This one, should it catch Shukri off guard? But no, he runs over towards Freezer instead, likely saving his own life for this very, very crucial round. The big thing for me is last time we saw Heroic push this site, they did a bit of a garage hold here. And Shepard, he was able to nail one of those exothermics for free, so they know that that's a possibility. Nicely timed. Double AMP comes out. Does he catch this one as well? Not a chance. He's caught both. The wall will surely get opened up, but he has taken a lot of those utility, which would otherwise be used on alternate walls.
Now, I'm not entirely sure where he suffered the bullets from. Maybe it was just a catch on the drone hole, but I don't think they had the angle from where they were at. Either way, Shepard did a valiant effort and cost them some of their utility, but didn't quite get the entirety of a lockdown. Potentially, it was just Blaz from the other side of the window. He didn't want to handle too much.
I'm sorry, what?
One?
Did he Kai trick that from the rafters? Always. My man, how many is left? Look onto the left side of your screen. 1 singular Selma charge is left to try and make entrance on a site where they have decided that they will just minorly change up their setup to the point where Heroic is not allowed any access to garage outside of the door.
Well, the last Selma pops, which means, as you said, garage is locked. Blaz is going to see if he can dig his way through and draw some attention with Shukri offering some support on the far side. Dan, in the meantime, has actually just pulled his way back to site. They said, well, this is open. They've had the cost here, so let's go for a little bit more of a vertical hold on the site itself, because chances are this was expected, the rotation around to the other side. If you cannot get the control of garage and the control of CC in the way that you want, then plan B it is. Plan B is a take here on the logistics, on the construction side, where there's a much sharper entrance, the much more ability to push them and funnel them, and still the possibility of getting this diffuser down.
What they'll be hoping to do is possibly even a window plant. There's no way they can plant in that door. They can't open Con's single wall. And as Shukri desperately tries to get an opening kill there for their side to maybe open up the side, he gets punished as well. There's a couple of players on the side of Empire who are lit considerably, but that doesn't mean that they have access to where the diffuser is to get a plant down. Scythe is going to be that two-smoke man, and boy, watching that player run on by its joystick, his trigger discipline means he'll surely get two. There's one, but misses the second. Well, 20 seconds left here, Em. This is do or die for Heroic.
Joystick is underneath. He gets one more. Thunder with the trade above. Suddenly, Heroic need to throw themselves in, but with Chaosis going down, it's just Shukri, almost Thunder. So exceptionally injured. Shukri on the door. He's the man with the diffuser. He's the recent pickup. This is the last chance for Heroic, potentially, to find themselves sitting a bit pretty. Dan catches the end. Empire catch the full 3 points, and Heroic catch themselves, unfortunately, falling a little bit short, and worse than that, watching a game of Siege later that dictates the next year of their life.
An incredible match here to end what I would consider to be one of the most important matches of today outside of that secret BDS game, which